Welcome to another episode of Junior Achievement of South Florida's Recipe for Success. Just as there are no two recipes that contain the exact same ingredients or measurements, there are no two success stories exactly the same. Recipe for Success features entrepreneurs, visionary leaders, and innovators of all ages who will share the ingredients that make them successful. Here's your host, Lori Salarulo, President and CEO of Junior Achievement of South Florida.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode of JA's Recipe for Success. I love this series, and I love that I get to bring you some of the most amazing leaders, entrepreneurs, startup, innovators, and bring that to you and hear about and learn about their recipe for success and the ingredients that help make them and their companies successful. And so for those that don't know me, I'm Lori Salarulo, and I am your host. Today's guest is someone who hit this community by storm. She came to South Florida as the new CEO of the DiMaggio Children's Hospital, and Katelyn, Stella just got right into this community, dug in deep, got connected, got involved, and I got to tell you, she is awesome, awesome, awesome. So I want to welcome our guest for today, Katelyn, Stella, CEO of DiMaggio Children's Hospital.
Thank you, Lori. You're very kind. And very warm welcome from people like you. I absolutely love this community, and I love the people in it, and you are one of them.
Thank you. Yes, I know we got to meet early on when you came down here and took on the new position, and you were out there meeting new people, and I was like, I have to meet her. And so I was so glad that I did. And you immediately embraced our mission, right? For two reasons. One, making sure that young people are prepared for the future, but also around career development, right? And healthcare, because there's so many opportunities, and there's so many opportunities right here in our own community. So we want to keep them here, right? So that they can go work for Memorial and DiMaggio Children's Hospital.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I shared with you that I benefited from Junior Achievement when I was in high school, actually. So I think I told you that. So It's always one of those organizations that I think does so much good for children, and I'm proof.
Yeah, you certainly are. And there's a whole JA alumni study which shows that young people who do go through these programs, especially the entrepreneurial business programs, how it does really help to create that mindset, that business mindset. And so, but I want to, and since that is one of our focuses, I always love asking people, how did you find this path, right? Well, how did you know? When did you know? What happened that made you say, this is where I want to go and this is what I want to do?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I'll tell you my story briefly. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm one of 7 children. And my mom is from a very large family, and my dad's from a large family. And so family is everything to us. And growing up that way, I loved being around children. My mom's a teacher. She was a special ed teacher, and then she was a preschool teacher. And so the children were always sort of the focus of the family. And so there were a couple things that happened along the way as I was trying to figure out what to study in school and what kind of path I was going to take. And one of them was that my grandfather was diagnosed with cancer, and I was very close to him. We were all very close to him because our family was so tight knit, and we had a business. We still have a business together, but he was kind of the patriarch. And I had a very hard time grieving after he passed away. And one of his doctors actually said to me at the funeral, "Why don't you come and volunteer at the hospital? It will help you heal, And so I did, and I absolutely loved being in the hospital environment. And then I started kind of volunteering at the Children's Hospital, and I absolutely fell in love with that environment. But so I did a little bit of both adult and children's, but my heart was really always with the kids. And I was a junior in high school, and by the time I was getting ready to go to college, I knew I wanted to work with children in some capacity, and I thought maybe it would be more clinical. So I studied child development as an undergrad, and I figured I'd go on to get a master's of either social work or psychology, things of that nature. And as I kind of evolved in my career, I was headed in that direction, and I had the opportunity to work for the Center for Autism Research and Treatment at UCLA. And that's when I really started to learn the power of helping entire populations of people instead of one by one, one patient at a time, which is also wonderful. But my mentors directed me to see that one of my skills was really impacting a large group of people and being able to manage things in a way that many, many children could benefit instead of just one at a time. So I kind of changed my course and instead of going into a PhD program, which I was originally scheduled to do in clinical psychology, child psychology, I switched to public health. And that totally changed my world because I started to realize that I'm a public health thinker. I think big. I think of how to help thousands of kids, not just one at a time, which both is important. So that was kind of what started me on this path. And since I had loved the children's hospital environment so much, through my career experiences, I was able to work in children's hospitals as a consultant when I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers. And then I was able to move into a leadership role at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and then eventually at UCLA Mattel Children's Hospital. So it's just always my thing. And I mean, I'm a kid at heart, and people know that about me. If I go down a different career path, I will be Lotsie Dotsie, who is our resident mom. That's my job. I'm working.
That's going to be your retirement?
Yeah, 100%. Although she is far from retired, that woman works very hard, and our kids absolutely love her. Anybody in this community knows Lotsie, but I enjoy the interaction with children and families, and I think our team at the Children's Hospital, such special people, and we all recognize that we have the ability to make a very difficult experience as good as it can possibly be for our kids. So yeah. I've just stayed on this path because I just really love being able to support children in this way.
Yeah. And what I kind of hear you saying is, for especially for our young people who watch, you may not know exactly what position you want. Right. I didn't know I wanted to end up being a CEO of a nonprofit because, like you, I like to affect larger numbers. But I did know that I loved helping people, and I loved helping people grow and reach their potential, even as a leader, as a manager. I always loved that. And so I knew what my core skills were that I wanted to use. Right. And I knew that I loved working with young people because they're so impressionable and you can just watch them transform before your eyes. Right. Us adults are a little bit more stuck in our ways, harder to change our behaviors sometimes. But with children, you can just mold them and help them to grow. And so I feel you. Right. And I think that's what I loved about you the minute we met.
You, Lori, that I actually have mentored lots of students over my career, and I've had interns and things like that. And I really try to emphasize to them that having a predetermined path in your mind sometimes works against you because you miss opportunities. Like I never knew where this was going to take me. I've just stayed true to my heart and true to myself, and I've let that kind of guide what comes. And I really do believe that had I had a rigid path of where I wanted to go, I would have missed really great opportunities that have led me to where I am. So I always try to discourage that thinking that you think you have to achieve something in a certain way by a certain time, because it might take you somewhere you never expected, and that might be where you're meant to be, and you would never know.
Such a good point. Yeah, I love that. So being open to the opportunities and not being so fixed on one particular thing. I love that. You mentioned the Center for Autism Research and Treatment. And so, as a mom of a child who's now an adult, a young man with special needs, I can tell you, and I know I think you've met Patrick, but I have learned so much about myself as a leader, as a person, by working with, not only having Patrick, but working with and in the world of special needs. Talk a little bit about that, because I think there's something you must have taken from that.
Oh, yes. It's actually one of the things I'm most proud of being part of, honestly, in my career. I was fresh out of college. I didn't necessarily know what I was doing, but I was part of a movement that was happening during that time. And so the way I talk to our parents about this all the time, especially ones that have maybe the more rare diseases that don't have the same kind of support as the larger, the more well-known ones. But what I watched happen early in my career is so profound, because it was, 1999, 2000 timeframe. Autism wasn't known the way it is now. Barely any of those services were paid for by insurance. The state centers were still trying to figure out what made sense, the IEPs and things. It was all in flux. And what I watched happen, which was such a special experience, was I watched parents mobilize. And I watched people who were seeking answers and coming to places like UCLA, where I was. And I felt just as much as I felt like, look, they're coming to us as experts. We need to be a resource for them. And they felt like, look, we're going to band together and we're going to make change. And that is exactly what happened, because parents organized and got their way to Congress and made resources possible to create the centers that then I was able to help implement. So it was such a great experience to see the power of how every voice counts. And, watching what's happening in the world today, it's disruptive. It's, it's difficult to see people in this kind of pain, but we're growing as a country. It's like good in that regard that people are able to use their voices and use their influence to actually make change, because it does happen. I watched, and parents totally changed the trajectory of autism care and autism research. And so that's, like I said, I try to talk to some of our families sometimes when they're discouraged about what's available for their children. And I say, keep going, keep, be engaged, be an advocate, because I saw it happen early in my career.
And I'll tell you, I was one of those parents. And so I will tell you that when I look back on my life, some of those changes that we brought to the special needs community are my greatest legacies and my greatest accomplishments, right? And so I love that, that sometimes we have to go through pain to get to growth, right? And I love that. Talk a little bit, because we're going through a really difficult time. And when you talk about the power of voices, not just to create change in healthcare, but look at what's happening around equality and all of that, right? So yes, using our voices today is so important and helps us to create change. But I would be remiss if I didn't, with the CEO of Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital and part of the larger network of Memorial, if I didn't at least ask, how we are going through such a crazy time, and it changes daily, hourly sometimes. How are you at the district, right, and in Joe DiMaggio, how are you making sure that you are keeping your team motivated and helping them with those resources and those things you talk about?
It's a very uncertain time for all of us, because we are employees and we're teammates and we're working, but we're also, their parents, and we're living in the world and we're getting the news updates. And so we're just people living in the world, coming to work. And we just happen to be in this environment where it is very fluid, And so I think the one thing that this organization has done remarkably well, I'm so proud to be part of Memorial, because I will tell you that our board of commissioners, our CEO, our senior leadership team, everybody here, we've spared no expense to keep our team safe, to keep them protected. We're making very cautious decisions. We're very calculated about what we're doing, and conservative, I would say, because we are in a time that we haven't lived through this before. Right. I've never been through a global pandemic before. So I'm learning just as everybody else is learning on our team, and we're trying to use good, objective data and information, be very transparent about communicating what's going on. I would say these are the kinds of things we're doing to keep our team motivated. And I think it comes down to communication and teamwork and just that morale building. And the way we're doing it is through immense amounts of gratitude. I have to tell you, we are in awe in awe of what our teams are doing. I mean, it's hard when we see things on the news, and then it's very, very real for us, but we are just so incredibly grateful for the sacrifices people have made. You know, they're coming to work, they're going home to their families. There's a lot of, you know, kind of mixed emotions about being here. And, you know, and I have to tell you that this special people that we have in this institution, they rally and their human spirit is strong. And so for us, we really just try to keep focused on how grateful that we are for every single person in every single role. Because you know, even with talking with some of the security guards, the people that are cleaning the hospital, like everybody's being stretched, you know, nurses, physicians, people being deployed from one clinical area to another to help out. It's kind of a beautiful thing in some ways that everyone's just jumping in to help however they can. And so as much as it's difficult and challenging, we're just trying to be really transparent and also very, very thankful and show our appreciation for them every single day.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I think you're so right. Right now, we really do. I mean,
Yeah.
You know, there are families obviously who have lost loved ones. And so there are people out there who have absolutely are suffering or have suffered.
Yeah.
But overall, you know, I think every day that we wake up and we're healthy and our families are healthy, and we can help others, right, is a day for us to be grateful. You know, you said two words, Caitlyn, that I think just, I mean, everything you've talked about today, and I haven't heard anybody use this yet till today, but it hit me like right here. You used the term human spirit. Mm-hmm. And you talked about that in so many different ways in here today. And I think that that's motivation of itself, right? That as a human race, right? That spirit to keep going, that spirit to help people. Oh my gosh, so powerful.
Yeah, and I have to tell you that we did a prayer service here. It was kind of a unity service. And there was so much going on, and the level of stress and anxiety for all of us, especially the frontline people dealing, you know, with patient care. We decided to, across the entire health system, do a sort of a unity event. And I was trying to find the words to open it up, you know, like, what do you say right now? It's just very, very hard to find the words. And I did emphasize that like the human spirit and the human experience is common. And, you know, it was interesting. It kind of forced me to look up the word compassion, because I was wanting to use the definition of compassion, and it actually means to suffer together. And so I think that whole notion of like, we're all suffering in some way right now, some more than others. I mean, believe me, I'm not comparing myself to what other people are going through right now, but I do believe that we're all kind of mourning different parts of what we're seeing happening in the world and what's happening to other people. But we are, by coming together, even though we're physically distant, we're still, you know, social beings that need each other for support. And so that human spirit, that human experience, it's messy. That's what I actually said. And that it is a messy experience. We make mistakes. We fall down. We have bad days. We snap, but we all have them. And so just the fact that we are all human kind of brings us together to say, we will get through this. And most of the world wants things to be better. And that's what motivates me every day. If you ask me, I want to promote good in the world. You know, I mean, I can't do it alone. I have these wonderful, wonderful people I'll do, but we're all going in the same direction of trying to make things better. And I do believe that the vast majority of people in the world want that too. And that's what to emphasize here, that we love what we do. We love each other. We're going to take care of each other. And that's just, here, I'll show you my little mask. This is like I
love it.
Our Joe DiMaggio logo.
I love it. I want one of those.
I will get you one. Don't worry.
I love it.
I feel like
wear it.
Inspiration. Like we have emphasized that we only have love here. There's only love here for everyone, our patients, our families, each other. Like, you know, that's it.
Yeah, I love that. All right, I'm gonna hold you to that, to send me one. You know,
I will.
you talked about how you, obviously, as a leader, and I was just talking with someone about this morning. And so as leaders, right, I think good leaders, right, feel that they need to always make sure that they are keeping their team, right, optimistic and hopeful. And as you said, that there's good and we're going to get there and we're going to get there together. But sometimes as leaders, that can be draining and exhausting. And so how do you fill your cup back up? Because I think that's so important, especially as women. And I don't mean that men are not nurturing and all those things, but I think there is something innate about us women that we feel that we need to take care of others. But how do you take care of Caitlyn?
Oh, it's a good question. I'm not very good at it. I believe me. This is not my sweet spot. I struggle with this because I work very hard because I love what I do. And so I sometimes will push that envelope, just a little too far sometimes. And then I'm not doing the basic things of sleeping and exercising and making some time for downtime. And so I definitely struggle with that. But like I said, I get a lot of my energy from other people. So if it's not my work, it's my family, it's my husband, it's my siblings and nieces and nephews. And I rely on my inner circle to let me just be who I am. And that, it's that messy part of yourself that you need somewhere to put. And they love me anyway. Right. They do definitely have supported me through, as you said, some of those times in your life that, so I definitely rely on that. And I have to say, I think sometimes a little alone time to think and strategize and write. And I benefit from that. I need that sort of just time to just chill. So I have to force. So my husband jokes and in the evenings when I come home, he'll say, all right, we're taking you for your walk. It's like a puppy or something. He walks me at night so that other people walk their dogs. He walks his wife,
Yeah, but that's part of it, right? Is having someone, as you said, your circle around you that takes care of you and that we allow them to take care of us, right?
That's been a challenge for me, but I have fully accepted. I accept it more and more from my team as well. One of my colleagues, she's our chief nurse. She is always making sure I eat, and I'm doing that for her. But she's, it's just, you have to have those people that are kind of looking out for you. And I feel like I'm trying to do that too. But we lose sight sometimes when you get buried in experiences like what we're going through now. I mean, it's certainly a vortex, that can just kind of bring you in. But you do have to remember that if you can't fill your cup, you're really not your best self, and you can't do the best job. So I've definitely learned that over my life. I still struggle, but
I try. You and I have that in common. I think, I know. And it's interesting because I remember when Patrick was born, somebody sent me something that basically said, it was basically giving me permission to be a little selfish, because as mothers, whether it's as a mother, whether it's as a leader, right? And you also have children and families, right? Just, so it was kind of giving me permission to be a little selfish sometimes and say, you know what, I just need this little bit of time alone and not feeling guilty about that. And I'm not very good at it. And I think you're right. But also people giving you the right to just be grumpy if you're grumpy, or just feeling tired, right? Or whatever it is, or picking up that meal. Michael, sometimes I'll say, okay, what are you thinking for dinner? Let me take something out. And he's going, nah, you've had a long week. Let me just pick some stuff up, and just those little things can really help when you have the right people around you. So
the little things sometimes are the ones that kind of wake you up to just how maybe dysfunctional
we are. I know.
I'm taking you for a walk. You're like, okay, he's right. I haven't been outside, for days. But
it's true.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's self-care. I don't look at it as being selfish. I think it's just self-care that we tend to feel guilty about, but it's necessary. And honestly, I have burned myself out over my career to the point sometimes where I used to get really sick, and I've just learned I don't want to do that to myself anymore. Like, I'll do anything I can to kind of catch the feeling of it early and then try to dial it back. But I will say though, having a team, like having the best team, which I do, makes a huge difference, because then you know that, hey, I need to decompress, and that it's 100% in good hands. And I would say at the Memorial in general and at Joe DiMaggio, that's exactly what we have here. They are just the best people, and they care very, very deeply about, we all do, about our kids, our families, our work, each other. So
yeah, I think that's so right. And when your team, I think as a leader also, that's so rewarding, to know that you have the right people and you can trust them, right, to go do it, because they care just as much as you do. And so I think that, so you all have that common bond, that common mission, right? Yes. And so I think that's so important. And I also think that it's quite a testimonial to a leader when their team is taking care of them too, right?
Yes, you know, it's a street for sure. Yes, I'm very grateful for all they do.
So I always, around this time, I start to read back a little bit of your recipe for success and some of the ingredients. And then I'm going to ask you to tell us your main ingredient. It may be one of the ones you already mentioned, or it might be something you haven't. But just, it's interesting when you hear it read back to you. Usually when we're in the kitchen at JA, now you're in my kitchen, we have a whiteboard and I put all the ingredients as we're talking. So people will often say to me, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, wow, I have a good ingredients, you know, kind of thing. So, but here's some of the things that I captured from what you talked about, right? Family, you mentioned that first and foremost, how important family is to you. You talked about zeroing in on something that you knew was important to you for your career, whatever it was going to be working with children. So identifying that one thing that you knew you wanted to incorporate, having mentors and also being a mentor. So you mentioned both ways. Impacting large groups, thinking big, that collective impact that I love about you. You know, staying true to your heart. I think this one is so critical. Staying true to who we are. Being open, flexible, right? Not getting stuck on one thing, but being open to others' ideas and other opportunities that come along our way. Being a resource to help change happen. I think that's important as an individual and as an organization. The power of collective voices and being a part of that is so impactful. How pain sometimes leads to growth, and right, so that tells me that you're very open to continuing to grow as a leader and as a person. Realizing that we can't do it alone. Compassion, the big C word that you mentioned. Finding, you know, opportunities. I love how you talked about your volunteer opportunity got you involved in your industry and in your field. And so that's a great thing for our young people to hear. Keeping your team safe and your family safe and your friends and inner circle safe. Constant learning, transparency, communication, teamwork, gratitude, and of course, human spirit. What's the main ingredient for Caitlyn, Stella? Love. I love it.
Well, honestly, I really believe this, that if you really love what you do and you love where, you know, for me, it's not a job, it's my life's work. You know, I don't look at it as a job. I love this work. I love being a part of these families' lives. I've loved every family I've been able to help, whether I was at the Autism Center or I was in LA. And, you know, my team has seen me like replying to text messages with families in Los Angeles that I'm like, oh yeah, go see Dr. So-and-so. You know, I love being that person that can help, you know, in some way behind the scenes, because I'm part of the system. I know the system. I understand it. I can get you something you can't get yourself when you need it for your child. So for me, I just think if you love what you do and you're going to do it well, and that's going to guide your path. That's my advice for students at all times. Find something you enjoy and do it well. And people just, you know, will, like, opportunities and things will come to you because people will be looking at you as someone that just has such energy for what you do because you love it. So to me, it all starts there. And And at Joe D, it's when I walked into the building the first time at Joe DiMaggio, I tell this story all the time. I felt like just this big hug because it's just an organization that you just feel the love right away. And I started studying our logo. I was like, it's a glove with a heart in the middle of it. Yeah, so everybody's got this common core that really wants to do what's best for our families, going above and beyond. And so I believe this organization shares the same true north as me person.
No, I love it. I love it. I think you're amazing. And I just want to say thank you. Thanks for sharing. Yes, I know, virtual hugs. I just want to thank you for sharing so openly, because I think that, you know, this inspires and motivates not only our young people, but each of us, right? This fills, by the way, this is part of what fills up my cup, are people like you that I get to talk to on this show, because I can start out my morning just feeling so exhausted, right? My brain is just so overloaded. And then I do these shows and I come off them on a high because I feel filled up. And so thank you for filling me up. Thank you for taking care of so many.
Absolutely. And I have to thank you, because this community, and I know many, many people who will see this agree with me, we are so fortunate to have you as a leader in our community, because you embracing me when I was brand new here, and you're part of the reason I feel this way here and can do what I do. So I thank you too.
Well, thank you. Yes, it is a mutual love fest, as you said, love. So thank you on everyone. Yes, I'm holding you to that. I can't wait. I'm going to be checking the mail every day. But thank you so much again. Please give our hugs and our kisses to all of you, your entire team, because as you said, they are just, you know, their compassion. We could not get through this without them. And so please give them all of our love and hugs. And thanks again for joining us. And thank you to everyone watching. And I know that I know hopefully your cup got filled up by watching Caitlyn as well. So stay tuned.
So much.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to seeing everyone on our next episode of JA's Recipe for Success. Let's get cooking.